Okay, we're back for part 3, and as you can see, I got a bit carried away with my stitching. So if you haven't seen any of the videos in this series so far, in part 1 we made our background with this stack and work crazy patchwork technique, and last time we started adding our slow stitching. And I started off, the intention originally was to just do the front cover like this. I started off doing these radials inspired by this appliqued piece of embroidery that I'd done. So I just started doing some radials with some straight lines coming off and did those on the front cover. My intention was to do something different for the back, but I started thinking as I was going along that it might look a little bit sort of cobbled together if there's different stitching on the back, because we've got crazy patchwork in the background. I thought it'd be nice to harmonise it with the same motif all the way across, and to be honest, I was just loving it, these radials with the lines coming off. I just love the way it looks, so I just carried on, got carried away, and have stitched right across the back. I've also put in some more simple circles here and there that don't have any lines coming off, and that I think just fills in gaps without it becoming totally chaotic. And I'm just really happy with the way it's come out. It's very textured. As I've worked on it, the edges of the patchwork have gone nice and fluffy. So it's just really textured, feels lovely, and I'm really enjoying it. So what we're going to do now is build our book sleeve. So we're going to put it together and turn it into an actual book sleeve. So what I need to do is make sure this isn't on show. I don't want all the knots to be visible. Normally I like the backs of pieces because I think it tells the story of the piece, but because books are going to be sliding in and out of this, I don't want to put the stitching at risk, so we are going to cover that over. So what I've done is cut a piece of fabric that is going to work as the back. So this is just a little piece of blender fabric that I've got that I thought matched quite well. It's not from the original Slow Stitch pack, but there was nothing in there that was big enough, so I've gone to my stash and just found a piece of fabric that I think will work. And this is cut to the right size. So this is the book that we're making a sleeve to fit. It's a black and red plain notebook. It's 192 pages, and I toyed with the idea of making an adjustable book cover, but haven't really made the panel long enough to do that, so we're just going to make it fit this book. It's a fairly standard size book, and there will be, because it's fabric, there'll be a little bit of wriggle room for if a book is slightly thinner or slightly thicker, so I think it will be fine. What I've done is taken a measurement by tucking 5 centimetres inside the front cover of the book, closing the book, and then going all the way round to the back, and then tucking in 5 centimetres. So it actually works out at 55 centimetres, like that. I think I'm going to make the flaps a little bit longer than 5 centimetres just because of the weight of the book. So I've actually cut this to 59. It gives me a seam allowance, no, 60, sorry. Gives me a 1 centimetre seam allowance all the way around, and once I'd taken that measurement of the length all the way around the book, I then took a measurement of the height of the book, so it's 30.5. I've cut this to 33.5 because I want ½ centimetre either end. If I make it exactly the size of the book, it's going to be impossible to get the cover into the flap. So I've added 1/2 centimetre top and bottom, and then added a 1 centimetre seam allowance, which takes me up to 33.5. So as long as I stick to my seam allowances, I'm going to be fine. There's going to be plenty to work with here. Now, there are loads of ways to do this. There are loads of tutorials online for making book sleeves. This is the way I'm choosing to do it. Please don't come for me in the comments. I'm sure there are 101 better ways of doing this. I'm trying to come up with a method that is going to preserve the stitching, that's going to deal with these raw edges, and I'm not trimming this back. The easiest way of doing it would be to square this off and cut this to size, but I've stitched right up to the edge and I don't want to risk the stitching until the backing fabric is stitched on. So I'm going to stitch the backing on so there's some good close stitching around the outside, and then I will trim it back. So all I need to make sure of is that I'm not going to end up with a raw edge inside at the edge of my panel here. So I'm just making sure that that seam allowance line that I've marked on, you might just be able to see it, is inside the last little bit of fabric, and then I can smooth it out and it should work pretty well. I can go very close to the top. I'd rather lose off the bottom where we had to sort of piecemeal it together, so I'd rather lose off the bottom here. This was a strip that the Stack and Whack didn't cover, so we sort of pieced it. I'd rather lose off that than off the top. So I'm just smoothing that out just like a good quilter, and then I'm going to just put some pins to hold it in place. I'm going to machine sew this because you can hand sew it, but I think I'll be here forever trying to do it in a way that makes the seams really robust. So because books are going to be put in and taken out of this, hopefully forever, I want those seams to be really robust to withstand some strain. So that's what we're doing. Now there's one other thing that I wanted to do. We've got some resources from the original pack that I haven't used, and one of them is this lace trim, and what I wanted to do with this is create a sort of bookmark. So sometimes you get like a piece of elastic where you can section off some of your pages so you could mark where your book is up to, and that's what I think I'd like to do. So I need to keep it fairly loose, but I'm going to trap it inside the back cover. So I need to do a little bit more measuring just so that I can position this right. So let's leave 6 centimetres for the flap. I've measured this already, so I do know that the front cover is 22 centimetres. The spine is 1.5 centimetres, and then the back cover is 22 centimetres, and then I should have 6 centimetres left. And I have measured that from the seam allowance. That gives me a 1 centimetre seam allowance. I have measured it very closely. I'm going to tuck this in roughly here so that it can be used as a bookmark. So I don't want it right up to the back cover, but I don't want it too far in to make it difficult for the pages to tuck under. Could do it on the front cover. Maybe I should do it on the front cover. Back cover makes more sense to me. Does it though? Bear with me, I'm going to check my books. Right, I've had a look at my journals. They definitely appear on the back cover, so I'm just going to take these pins out again for a second. Bit counterintuitive to pin it and then unpin it, but it's the way my mind works, so please bear with me. So I want it to go in about there, I think, a bit further over maybe, quite close to the edge of the back cover. I can feel through, so it's about 2 centimetres away from the edge of the back cover, which I think will work. And I don't want it to be super tight, so what I'm going to do is just pinch a bit of slack into it. Just fold back like a centimetre, like that, and that will allow it to go over the pages. Now I'm just going to check where have I put my tape measure. I'm working in a bit of chaos today. This is a big project that not like time consuming, well it has been time consuming, but the panel itself is very big, and so it takes up more space than things normally take up on my sewing table, so I have to sort of cast everything aside. So that is, where's the edge of it? Just feeling through. That is pretty straight. Not bad for eyeballing it. Let's just get a pin and hold that in place like that. Right, so what I need to make sure I do is allow some space for turning through. So I'm going to just mark a stopping point, and I will mark a centimetre. In fact, let's do it now. I'm going to mark my seam allowances all the way around. Just using my little grid ruler. It'll stop me going wrong. I know my backing piece is dead square because I measured it really carefully. I have got a number of videos that show you how to use grid rulers and how to measure and square things off and things like that, so just have a mooch through. Just in case you've got no idea what I'm doing there and it looks like I'm being totally random, because there's a grid on my ruler, all I have to do is line up the 1 centimetre line. I've gone a bit awry there because the pins are in the way. Line up the 1 centimetre line on the ruler with the edge of the fabric, and Bob's your uncle. I've got my seam allowance. So this I don't want to sew. So I'm just that's my note to self. Don't want to sew that. So I'm going to just whiz around that with the sewing machine, and then I'll come back and show you the next stage. So sorry about the dodgy angle. I just wanted to show you my sewing machine. So this is just straight stitch and it's automatically set to 2.5. This is the needle position, so I can move it left or right or make the stitch wider. This is automatically done. What I want to do, because I'm trying to preserve the embroidery around the edge, I'm going to shorten that stitch length. So I'm going to use quite a short stitch. Maybe I'll even go down to 1, and that means that the stitches are going to be really close together, and all those ends of threads on the embroidery are going to be held in place really nicely. It does mean it's going to take some time to get around because I'm not covering very much ground with each stitch. want my needle to stay in at the end of my line so that I can swivel around the corner. So those stitches are super close together. Fine by me. I could probably go to 1.5. Don't want to be here all day. So that's where we're up to. I'm going to square off the edges, I think, before I go any further, because we've put in those really close stitches. I think our embroidery is going to be fairly well protected, so I'm just going to use my ruler. I think I don't have to agonise about the seams. I'm not going to keep them to a centimetre. I'm going to go slightly less, and I'm just going to trim away. Maybe we should just, before we do that, let's just check the sizing. Oh, I think that's going to be perfect. Hopefully you can see that a little bit better. So the edge of the book cover is about half a centimetre away from the seam, and if I go to the other end, you see the same. Here's the seam and the edge of the book cover is there, so that should give us plenty of give to be able to get the book inside the sleeve. So excuse the bizarre camera work. It's just trying to get everything filmed so that you can see it. It's proving to be quite tricky on this project, so I'm just trimming back the edges. They don't have to be perfect, they're all going to be hidden away, and embroidery is protected because it's all the ends of threads are caught inside that really closely stitched seam. So corners, I'm just going to cut the corner off just to take out some of the bulk. You don't have to do this with a rotary cutter, you could do it with pinking shears or just normal scissors would be fine. I just happen to have my rotary cutter handy. Gosh, I hope this works. Let's take that corner off. Now, before I trim this seam back, I want to just fold it back. I can mostly finger press it, I think. I want to fold it back to where the seam is going to need to be. Like that. I'm just going to press it. And I'm going to get my aqua pen and just mark on the other side where the seam needs to be. Like that. And that'll just give me a guide when I'm sewing that seam. So I'm going to just trim this back to the centimetre, because I tend to find if you make your seam at your opening too small, it starts behaving badly. Now, to help me out a little bit, I'm also going to press that seam back. Just want to give myself every advantage for making this. So just pressing the seam back on itself. I'm hoping that's going to help it to turn through really crisply. There we go. So the moment of truth. Where's my opening? Here it is. We can turn it through. So I'm going to get my hand right in and I'm going to catch those corners first because it's quite long. I just want to be absolutely certain I'm going to be able to get everything pulled through really nicely. Now I don't have a point turner, so I'm going to just rely on wit and good judgment to get those corners turned through. I'm so nervous. That's a little bookmark. So what I normally do, particularly if I've got wadding, is just get the point of my scissors in, leave them closed, obviously you don't want to cut anything, and just ease those corners through until they're as sharp as they're going to get. So I've pressed it a little bit. I'm just going to go and make sure that seam is nice and sharp and just press it again. I'm hoping that little press while it was still inside out is going to help. I think it is helping because this backing fabric is finding its position quite nicely. There we go. So let's get this ironing mat out of the way and let's see what we have. Right. Oh, look at that. How pretty. Oh, what a relief. So, nearly there. What we need to do is stitch up this fold, this opening. Now you could just run it through the sewing machine if you want to. I'm just going to pop a pin or two in it. So first things first, I'm going to ladder stitch this opening close. So I've got a little bit of pale blue, just normal machine cotton. We've done ladder stitch quite a lot before, but I'll just show you how to do it. So I've just knotted the end and I want to come up inside the fabric just on that fold, and the tail of that knot is going to be hidden inside. Let's come in considerably closer for this. So I've got my thread coming out at the fold and it's on my patterned backing fabric, so I'm going to hop across horizontally and slide my needle in to the front panel and slide along a short distance, pull through. Then I'm going to hop back to the backing fabric, let's get that thread out of the way, and go in on the fold, slide along the fold and pull through. So now hop back to the front panel, slide along a little way, pull through, hop back to the backing fabric, slide along and pull through. And I'm just going to do a few more and then I'll show you what happens. Because at the moment we can see these stitches, and again you can whip stitch this if you want to. You could just run along it with the sewing machine, it's no big deal. But I like a ladder stitch, so I don't know if you can see. Let's see if we can bring it into sharper focus. There we go. So you can see my little stitches there. When I pull, they tighten up, and I've probably done a couple too many. They tighten up and become completely invisible. Just maybe done too many. Reluctant to pull too hard because I don't want the thread to break. But don't do too many before you pull it. But they just disappear and become completely invisible. So I'm using those dots that I put on the fabric to mark the seam as a guide for where my stitching needs to be. And all I'll do is just dip my finger in some water and just dab it along that edge, and those marks will disappear. Okay, so that's that gap all stitched up, and so now we just need to make our flaps. So I've got my heat erase pen again, and we want to take 6 centimeters, I think is what we allowed, 6 centimeters back from the edge. And then 6 centimeters back from this edge. And I'm just going to use my ruler. Let's do this side first. I'm going to lay that along the edge there and fold back like that, and that will help me get exactly the length of flap that I need. I'm just going to use a wonder clip to hold that down. Same at the top. Now we need to make sure when we do the back flap that it goes underneath. So I'm going to find the fold point. It needs to go underneath that little band, like that. Right, so we're going to use the same technique to close up those flaps. So I'm going to use a ladder stitch. I won't make you watch me do it again. We can do the front one first. So I'm going to start on the inside here, and I'm going to focus on stitching the backing fabric. I'm just going to pop that knot through. Just pulled it inside the fabric. So rather than worrying about the front of the book sleeve, I'm just going to work with the backing fabric, so that inner layer of fabric, and I'm going to make some ladder stitches as small as I can make them. So this has got to have some strength to it because it's going to have to take the strain of the book being put in and out. Right, I've done my first flap now. That's nice and secure. That's going to take the strain of putting the book in and out. Now this one, obviously our bookmark is in the way, so I'm just going to fold that back to the rear of the book sleeve. Get my ruler in again to double check the flap measurements. Now that they're checked and I know that they're okay, and just going to clip that in place, and then I'll do the same ladder stitching top and bottom. So I'll come back when I've done that. Okay, so that's the flaps stitched. I'm just going to pop my book in. So that fits really nicely into there. Sometimes with this kind of book sleeve you do have to just lift the book back on itself ever so slightly just to fit it in, and before I go any further I'm just going to bring that bookmark back around. We did build in a fair amount of slack, so just to be clear, I'm thinking that the pages will tuck quite nicely underneath that so that it can operate like a bookmark, so that'll sit quite nicely in there. And we're almost done. Now we could have put a little bookmark tape in, but there's one already in the book, so we don't need to worry about that. That's fitting really nicely. I'm very pleased with it. What a relief. I did wonder how well it was going to work, but seems to be fine. So I'm just going to tuck all those pages there. So all we've got left really is some embellishment, and I'm just going to put the book sideways so that you can see it. I think it's sitting very nicely indeed. That's the back. I like it, and I was thinking that we could maybe put some buttons down this bit of ribbon here. Maybe like that. I don't know. I don't like that they're all the same size. That's my problem. Maybe they need to go in the centres of some of the circles. I think that looks odd. What do we think? Don't know that it needs it. My problem with buttons on book sleeves is that when you open them, they then are rattly and sit on the surface. So do you know what? I think I'm going to leave it as it is. I think we're done. Because what I don't want is to create a book sleeve that is just annoying, scratchy, rattly, creates an uneven surface to write on. And I think actually right now it's working really nicely. And so that is our book sleeve. Can I get the camera a little bit further just so you can see the whole thing? There we go, that's our book sleeve. So opens out, has our little flaps, bookmark to keep the pages, keep our place in the book. We can just peel out what we need, write on it. So and if we don't like it, it can just sit on the back cover, or you can flap it out so that it's a sleeve on the back to tuck in important references or notes that you might want to keep hold of. That's the back of our book, and that's the project complete. So hope you've been inspired to have a go at making your own book sleeve. This obviously will fit whatever book, so you can keep your book in it while you're using it, and then once your book is complete you swap it out and you've always got a lovely soft book sleeve to keep your books together. You could, loads of things that you could do. You could attach a ribbon so that you can wrap the book closed. You could put a little pen loop on here. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, please do give this video a like, and if you want more projects like this, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching along with this project, and if you do make one of your own, do tag me at Feather Stitch House on Instagram. I'd love to see your version. If you want some more stitch projects, I will link a video here, and I'll put a video down here that's got some useful stitches for slow stitch projects so that you can play around and go a bit further with this if you want to. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you soon in the next video. Bye!